try and get your sleep right. Now, younger people with different schedules, like don't give up a social life, but try and get a good amount of sleep. Get good at that. Some people are great sleepers, some people aren't. Very good idea, if you want to be healthy, to do 3 days a week of weight training. We're talking about 10 minutes of warm up. A lot of people who are really overweight or even mildly overweight who have sleep apnea have more anxiety because they're not getting rid of CO2.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they're literally suffocating in sleep, and you'll see these people, they're mouth breathers. Not even necessarily just people who are overweight. So it's not good to be a mouth breather. You don't blow off enough CO2, anxiety goes up.
You should sleep with like athletic tape on your mouth so you train yourself to breathe through your nose, because apparently it's way better for you.
Yeah, I'll do cardio. I do a long run once a week or some long cardio. I do it. I try and not mouth breathe the whole time.
Can it also change face shape?
Yeah, so there's a wild book called Jaws, A Hidden Epidemic by colleagues of mine at Stanford. And they have these twin studies. One kid grows up in a culture where they eat a lot of soft food, drinking Capri Sun, eating applesauce, baby food. The other one is, got stuck in the jungle or wherever it is, and they're chewing on bones and chewing their food. And one kid, these are identical twins, has beautiful jaw structure and high cheekbones, and the eyes look nice and clear. The other kid is like droopy, the teeth are there, and their mouth breathing. They show this, there's one case of this young girl who she got a pet hamster, I think it was, got a allergy to the hamster, and literally took this beautiful young girl, and her face just starts aging at a rapid rate. They get rid of the hamster. She goes back to nasal breathing. They do a little encouragement of nasal breathing using the mouth closure thing at night, do a little bit of medical tape. And these beautiful, almost like model-esque features come back in this girl. Jaw shape and the clear to the nasal passages. Really there's no reason why any of us should ever I had braces, but all your teeth should fit in your mouth, right? And you should be able to put your tongue on the roof of your mouth with your mouth closed. I can't quite do it. Your palate should be somewhat wide, and so when we see, now there's the Jawzerciser is really big in Hollywood. That and peptides are taking over.
Wait, Jawzerciser?
Yeah, they have these things where
Bouncy mouthpiece.
Yeah. The only problem is it makes people drool. It's pretty gross. But,
Those work?
Exercise, they definitely work. They change your facial structure. They dilate the nasal passages. You look at somebody who keeps their facial muscles strong. And this is for women and men, their jaw muscles strong. We're not talking about there's certain people who are genetic freaks, like my friend Laird Hamilton. He's got, his big old neck and huge jaw. He looks like an actor from the 70s or something. He's just naturally that way. But people who care about their facial structure, especially who don't want, a lot of people are concerned with what's going on with my skin. A lot of women and men are putting all this stuff on to figure out how to get rid of the droopy eyes. It's actually a facial muscle issue, and where they just to do some jaw exercises and focus on not mouth breathing, it completely changes the structure of the face in just 2-3 months.
And there's skincare salons called Face Gym and other places where they're literally giving your face a workout, and you'll notice that it's a lymphatic type of massage. It'll change after one session. So I imagine just doing the training.
Yeah.
So when girls are getting maybe this doesn't work actually. When girls are getting filler to put in they have the hollow space or whatever here or here, does that?
Well, I look at the plastic surgery thing now, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, maybe this just reflects my age and my generation, but I see some people wearing so much dark eye makeup, plus they're getting the cheekbone inserts. They look like skeletons. Now that's not, listen, everyone's got their taste, especially if they're really lean, but facial structure is something that can be modified. And so chewing hard foods is something we used to do a lot more. All this slurping down of food and calories we know isn't good from the obesity side, but it's also not good from the jaw structure, teeth structure, face structure. And it's all related, So that book Jaws is amazing. People can just look it up online if they want to buy the book. Just do, Jaws, mouth structure, face structure, and then just go images, and you'll see these pictures. And this was known in the 1800s. There was a book called Shut Your Mouth by a British doctor who talked about the fact that people who snore sleep like this, and then during the daytime they become mouth breathers. He said they become less attractive than the people who are nose breathers. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and this is a zero cost thing, but it's not emphasized enough.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not
I've
emphasized.
heard
This is
about this.
crazy.
Crazy. Yeah.
I saw random things on maybe TikTok or Instagram of people who said, I started chewing this thing, or maybe it was the
that's the hard gum.
I thought, there was a hard gum.
Yeah.
And I thought that this was some like, I don't know, just some ploy, some like gimmick.
Some TikTok trend.
Yeah, to get some quick money out of people. But no, this is legit. Huh?
Yeah, and there's also for avoiding orthodontia, like kids who chew hard foods, who have to chew their food, eating real food and chewing their food, not just peanut butter, slurping down food all the time. They using their jaw and their teeth, they have really nice teeth. In fact, the argument was made, and there's animals in the animal kingdom have beautiful teeth structure. You don't see the messed up teeth. They have beautiful teeth structure, and they don't wear braces.
Yeah.
But they're tearing flesh and they're doing their thing.
We brought this up before. If you look at like mummified people from like way back in the day, their teeth are always like pretty good.
Yeah.
And like they don't have all crazy, they're not eating sugar at the same rate, stuff like that.
But those are the elites, bro. You know what I mean?
mummies?
Only the elites got
Chewing on
mummified.
bones and things like that. Well, and if people think this sounds like kind of like
Actually, wait, that makes sense. They were probably the ones eating the best food,
Yes.
the ones having to chew on meat, because it was the rich people that are going to be able to get that meat. Because I don't think they were mummifying everybody, right?
But I mean like people like the bog man that like is in, England that got frozen in like some bog.
Oh, okay. Even he has
their teeth are not in the way the Americans' teeth are now.
So then why did humans start losing their teeth? Is it like
this nice structure, you mean?
like you even look back at, old presidents and stuff like that. Like George Washington had all fake teeth. Like what did he start ingesting that's getting rid of?
Well, I think back then the problem was that, there was dental care is still a good idea.
Yeah.
In fact, bacteria in the teeth I'm terrible
Maybe
about
sugar,
flossing.
maybe sugar too?
Sugar and also
right.
people not flossing. Flossing tooth care actually improves heart health. This is not pseudoscience.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Because if you have bacteria living in your mouth, right, and starting to take residence in your mouth and they get into your system, it can cause issues for the rest of your body. We of course operated as a whole system. I'm pretty bad about flossing. I was one of these kids that had tons of cavities. It was just, and I took I brush twice a day. I don't know, are any of you 3 times a day brushers? You get those
I try to be, but I can't do it.
People, they always impress me. They're brushing their teeth after lunch. Yeah, it's not me either. Flossing and brushing, definitely good to keep bacteria out. But it's amazing what, chewing your food really well will do for a facial structure.
A lot of information saying that you need to move weights that are, 80 to 90% of your 1 rep maximum, or 70%, or cycle that for 3 weeks on and then go to more moderate weights. There are a lot of paths, as some people say, there are a lot of ways to add up numbers to get 100. And what's very clear now from all the literature that's transpired, and especially from the literature in this last 3 years, is that once you know roughly your 1 repetition maximum, the maximum amount of weight that you can perform an exercise with for 1 repetition in good form, full range of motion, that it's very clear that moving weights or using bands or using body weight, for instance, in the 30 to 80% of 1 rep maximum, that is going to be the most beneficial range in terms of muscle hypertrophy and strength, so muscle growth and strength. And there will be a bias. If you're moving weights that are in the 75%, 80% range, or maybe even going above that, 85 and 90%, you're going to bias your improvements towards strength gains. This is true. And if you use weights that are in the 30% of your 1 repetition maximum, or 40% or 50%, and doing many more repetitions, of course, then you are biasing towards hypertrophy and what some people like to call muscle endurance. But that's a little bit of a complicated term, because endurance we almost always think of as relating to running or swimming or some long bouts of activity. So 30 to 80% of 1 repetition maximums, it doesn't really seem to matter for sake of hypertrophy, except at the far ends when you're really trying to bias for strength. Now, it is clear, however, that one needs to perform those sets to failure, where you can't perform another repetition in good form again, or near to failure. There are some very interesting principles that relate to how the nerves connect to the muscles that strongly predict whether or not this exercise that you're performing will be beneficial for you or not. So here's how it goes. For individuals that are untrained, meaning they have been doing resistance exercise for anywhere from 0, probably out to about 2 years, although for some people it might be 0 to 1 year, but those are the so-called beginners. They're sort of untrained. For those people, the key parameter seems to be to perform enough sets of a given exercise per muscle per week. Okay, the same is also true for people that have been training for 1 or 2 years or more. What differs is how many sets to perform depending on whether or not you're trained or untrained. So let's say you're somebody who's been doing some resistance exercise kind of on and off over the years, and you decide you want to get serious about that for sake of sport or offsetting age-related declines in strength. The range of sets to do in order to improve strength, to activate these cascades in the muscle, ranges anywhere from 2, believe it or not, to 20 per week. Again, these are sets per week, and they don't necessarily all have to be performed in the same weight training session. I will talk about numbers of sessions. So it appears that 5 sets per week in this 30% to 80% of the 1 repetition maximum range, getting close to failure or occasionally actually going to full muscular failure, which isn't really full muscular failure, but the inability to generate a contraction of the muscle or move the weight in good form. I'll go deeper into that in a moment. But about 5 sets per week is what's required just to maintain your muscle. So think about that. If you're somebody who's kind of averse to resistance training, you are going to lose muscle size and strength. Your metabolism will drop. Your posture will get worse. Everything in the context of nerve to muscle connectivity will get worse over time unless you are generating 5 sets or more of this 30% to 80% of your 1 repetition maximum per week. Okay, so what this means is for the typical person who hasn't done a lot of weight training, you need to do at least 5 sets per muscle group. Now, that's just to maintain. And then there's this huge range that goes all the way up to 15 and in some case 20 sets per week. Now, how many sets you perform is going to depend on the intensity of the work that you perform. But the point being that most of your training, most of your sets should be not to failure. And the reason for that is it allows you to do more volume of work without fatiguing the nervous system and depleting the nerve to muscle connection in ways that are detrimental. So we can make this simple. Perform anywhere from 5 to 15 sets of resistance exercise per week, and that's per muscle. And that's in this 30 to 80% of what your 1 repetition maximum. That seems to be the most scientifically supported way of offsetting any decline in muscle strength if you're working in the kind of 5-set range, and in increasing muscle strength when you start to get up into the 10 and 15 set range. Now, the caveat to that is everyone varies and muscles vary in terms of their recoverability. Depending on how well you can control the contraction of muscles deliberately, and you can actually figure that out by sort of marching. You might take 5 minutes and just kind of march across your body and mentally try and control the contractions of muscles in a very deliberate way to the point where you can generate a hard contraction. And you may have to move a limb in order to do this, by the way. I'm not talking about just mentally contracting your bicep without moving your wrist. I'm talking about doing that without any weight in hand or any band or any resistance. If you can generate a high-intensity contraction using these upper motor neuron to lower motor neuron pathways to muscle, you might think, well, I should perform many more sets, right? But actually, the opposite is true. If you can generate high-intensity muscular contractions using your brain, using your neurons, it will take fewer sets in order to stimulate the muscle to maintain itself and to stimulate the muscle in order to grow or get stronger. So the more efficient you are in recruiting motor units, remember Henneman's size principle, the recruitment of more motor units, which isn't just muscles, it's nerve to muscle connections. The better you are at doing that, the more you will recruit these so-called high threshold motor units, the ones that are hard to get to, the more you will kick off the cascades of things within muscle that stimulate muscle growth and strength. So if you have muscles that are challenging to contract, it's going to take more sets in order to stimulate the desired effect in those muscles, not fewer. Okay? If you have muscles that you are very good at generating force within, it's going to take fewer sets. Now, how many sets? You are going to have to determine that. It's going to depend. For those of you that are using like 50% of your 1 repetition maximum, because you're doing a lot of repetitions, you might find that 3 or 4, 5 sets will maintain the muscle. You might decide to do that once at one point in the week and then do it again, right? So if you're going for 10 sets a week, you can divide that among 2 sessions. You can do that all in one session. There are some differences in terms of whether or not you're trying to generate maximum intensity within a workout or whether or not you want to spread that out. But in general, resistance workouts of any kind tend to be best favored by workouts that are somewhere between 45 minutes